Blessed love and peace. Another day, another Dundada. That's all we could think of last minute. To start with D and not be about the dumb stuff. And all that being said, all thanks and praise to the Most High. So, the main thing we share today, at this moment, so much, this whole week, so much. It's actually kind of simple. Life is a pledge process. Life is a pledge process from heaven to heaven. Life is a pledge process from heaven to heaven. We learn as babies, infants in the womb, closest with the heavens, with the garden. Then we get introduced to the earth. Spirit beings, becoming earth beings and having to learn the ways of the earth, pledging. And amidst learning the ways of the earth, as we become proficient simply just to live, then we are called to remember the ways of heaven and go back to heaven once in this life. It's a continual pledge process. So some might have an idea what it means to pledge, or what that, I mean, by the definition. Some might have an experiential knowledge. So I'll just give some anecdotal experience about numerous pledge processes that I'm involved in personally. One, we can just look into the fraternity situation, which is a basic kind of textbook definition or experience of pledge, at least, well, in that scenario, for better or worse. It's not, people fault fraternities and sororities for being just party and ignorant and artificial and superficial and whatever else, and exploitations in different ways, and there's elements of truth in all those accusations to their varying degrees. But the pledge process, I'll just speak for it very briefly, affirmationally, because as young men, pledge process is involved in military training men to be on the front lines. Pledge process is involved in police training. Pledge process in professional sports, you hear that called hazing, and additionally. So it's a matter of a man going through, particularly a man. It's different for women, but it's pledge process for sororities too. But for a man particularly, it's a matter of he's got to show what he can do. He got to show his grit, his mettle, his valor, we're gonna trust him to protect our women and children and elders and vulnerable. We need to see what this brethren can do. He needs to prove himself to us before we confer onto him the trust, before we confer onto him the authority, before we confer onto him a wife and further. So he got to prove. Now in a high advanced civilization that becomes very sedity in the city, those kind of traits are not as necessary, but still it's primal, and a man needs to be a man even when he shaves all this off and everything. No hate, but I'm just saying, brethren gotta now oftentimes in the city, it's a matter of just money and then applying the money to others. Even then, that's not enough, because money can go like that. Money can be taken like that. So a man still needs to know how to hold his own, even if it's just a matter of sitting back and telling others what to do and knowing how to plot a plan. That's how it gets the feeble-bodied kingpins revert to and are gleaned from heavy corruption and vile, nasty torture. So, anyways, it's a different type of pledge process to get to that, because it's not pretty. So, anyways, fraternity. And the thing about the pledge process is there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of just ignorant stuff, but there's also a lot of valuable things, particularly for brethren who don't have that type of guidance, who don't have a father in their house, who haven't learned certain things. There's a pledge process that comes from the big brothers, who put brethren through the ringer. And there's always that, oh, you didn't pledge like we pledged, and oh, you didn't have like that, oh, you skated, oh, you paper, da 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 da. Paper's different, but skated, oh, you skated, you didn't do nothing, da da da. And I didn't see you, they didn't see you, you know. There's all that, but the basics of it is that big brothers uh, put physical beat downs, mental beat downs, stress, regular 24/7. Um, and some of it is just taking advantage of the young brethren, it's fleecing them from whatever they. Oh, he got pockets, yo. We gonna take from him, or but the stated purpose and the main premise is, again, putting the kinfolk through stress to see how they respond to that, and not just to see how they respond, but to prepare them, because a lot of people might have a nice game or whatever, but then we got to see them in action. Somebody might have nice studies or whatever, but we got to put them on stage and see how they do on the front lines, in front of the public, and additionally. So one brother might be nice in studies, and he might be nice talking on the stage. But what we got to see what kind of leader he is, and when there's no script, and when there's no time to practice whatever. So that's what the pledge process does, and it takes a boy mindset to a man mindset, because I was still a boy mindset, very 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 I was boy man mindset, because very low key where people didn't see. I already knew. So, but I don't know everything still, or not. I don't know everything as much. I only know. I don't remember everything. Everybody knows everything. I didn't remember everything during that point. So I still had a very immature mindset. Still had a lot to learn, but still at the same time, I knew a lot further than what people recognize or what people could see. But anyways, the pledge process is a way of maturing a man, and that's from the Big Brother pledgee um, interaction. And there are abuses in that and exploitations in that, but it is a very valuable thing, because there's learning as well. So it's not just abuse, and it's not just humiliating people and subjugating people and subordinating brethren and sisterin and sisterin. There's also teaching, and okay, here's this mantra, here's this song, here's this story, here's why we do this, and it's giving knowledge, and that knowledge provides provides brethren with a greater sense of self, and connection with ancestors, and what our kinfolk go through generations before us, and how we get through it. And so it's a matter, again, it's a rite of passage from boyhood, and particularly in the black community, when there's an absence of a formal religious ceremony like a bar mitzvah where a brethren studies. That's the pledge process. Years and years of study, learning Torah to the point of being able to speak Torah on the Bima on Shabbat services. That's a pledge process. And then from that, becoming a man, being recognized by the community as a man. That's similar to what the fraternity process is for kinfolk in the black community in the United States. Without the African traditions historically, because those were beaten and killed and tortured out of kinfolk. And with varying kind of degrees of trust and reliance upon religious, particularly Christian, and there's actually very little Christian rituals in terms of rites of passage, because in formal Christianity, Catholicism, it's actually, a boy has to stay a boy as much as possible, and not procreate, and not be sexually active, and not have children. And additionally, that's the priest life. So the rite of passage has less of things. There's confirmation, and there's cotillion and everything else like that. But in general, like, that's antithetical to the Catholic epitome of monasticism. So parts of the rites of passage in every community is, again, going from a child to an adult, being recognized as an adult and trusted as an adult, and then matching, pairing up, marriage, and procreating, bringing children into this life. And so that's all part of the process. And the pledge, it's part of the rite of passage. And the pledge process is the crucible that the child has to go through to be recognized, and to have, not just be acknowledged and have a credential, but to have that experience of know what it's like to go through strife. In Africa, we learn about, like, a boy turns 13, here's a spear, go out and get a lion, and don't come back until you do. That's it. So every community, every culture has its pledge process, um, and there's purpose within that. So when we're going through that, some of us might be just completely devoted and loyal and not even question it. Some of us would be like, "Why are you doing? No, there's no reason for you to hit me. Like, there ain't no reason for me to bend over and you hit me with the paddle." Still agree with that one. I mean, we learn better, and once we learn better and go through the experience, then we have authority to say, criticize or otherwise. And even then, people say, "Well, you didn't do it like that, and you didn't." But still, like I said, in our spiritual path, we've learned there isn't a reason for doing that. We can There's other ways of instilling that discipline and that concentration through other means, particularly meditation, quiet, deprivation, and patience. The pledge process can be extended. So and open, like bump law and bump insurance and everything else. And that's the other thing, because um, anyway, that's another commentary. The whole thing about hating on hazing. Um, it's just, again, those are symptoms of the city. And does that sound too derogatory? We're buzz, engines, drill, stress going on right now, city. So you don't like it, then shut up. I didn't say it. Haha. How about that? All right. So pledge. It's top down, and it's an infliction of it's contrived imposition of pain and stress. Haha, pledge, and that's what we're getting to with this actually. It's imposition of stress and trials and tribulations to prepare the recipient, the participant, to experience it, to gain authority just through that experience, and to be recognized for that, and then continue the tradition, continue the legacy. That's from the top down, from the big brothers to the pledgee. We call it different things in different fraternities, and I'm not going to talk about all the different terms in our fraternity. That's one side. Now, the other side of it is this: the bonding between the pledgees, the brothers online. So then, because the brothers are going through that stress together, and they have to rely upon each other and support each other to get through it, now we have further invested within ourselves this sense of belonging and sense of cooperation and sense of responsibility for helping others on our line, and getting through it, and this sense of it's us versus what's going on. And so learn to trust people we don't even like, learn to work with people that we don't like, learn to love people we don't like, because this is how we have to get through it. And it's humbling, and it's maturing, and it's valuable. And that's a tremendous benefit and a tremendous reason for the pledge process. So those are some of the basic elements of it. And from that, when we get through it formally, it just continues on. Because, again, life is a pledge process. And that's what a lot of the kinfolk in a number of the fraternities say, is like pledging begins when you cross. Like when you get through the formal procedure, formal ritual, that's when pledging begins, because that's when the work begins. Now you're part of the frat. Now you got to do the work. You got to do the community service. You got to be on the yard. You got to represent all the time. You got to answer for any time we trip and your brethren trip. And otherwise, you got to provide hospitality. You got to do this, that, and the other. Once you cross. So you thought you were going through hell week or whatever else, and stress and everything else. Now you have responsibility, like a child having a child. And that's when the work starts. So pledge is a life process. Life is a pleasure process. Potato. So big point from this is in the formal designated pledge process. We participate because it's with the understanding that this is for the purpose, the objective, the goal of crossing, of eventually satisfying all the requirements, and then being accepted and conferred with all the privileges, quote unquote. We don't deal with privileges, just that's a general rhetoric thing, but all the recognitions and belongings, connections, network with other brethrens, fraternity throughout the country, the continent, even the world. There's considerable tangible benefits for belonging and having membership. So people are willing to endure all those challenges or whatever. Just but in the same time, for those who don't know, like I was actually I was in the legacy within my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, because my father was a member of Omega Psi Phi, but he never talked to me too much about it, so I didn't know a lot about what the fraternity life is like. So for those that do know, they know that the purpose is other than just like tangible benefits or whatever else. For those who are first generation, who are just joining the fraternity without knowing anything, they might have met somebody who's a frat, or just heard about it or whatever else. That's essentially what it is with me. Like I knew generally about fraternities and sororities, but not I wasn't in the know as much as I wasn't know a lot about black culture when I began at Hampton, particularly because well I'm mixed, and also being at Heights. Wasn't involved in like the black bourgeoisie set. So the fraternities and sororities and HBCUs, that's further than the bougie set. Heights is pretty much like just out the hood, don't know too much about what's going on, don't know about Jack and Jill or all the our kind of people type stuff, the boule and everything. Just getting out the hood kind of situation, and well, that's something. So, all right, didn't know much about the ins and outs of the fraternity, but the reason why I do it is because I have this sense of purpose. I have this sense of upliftment. I'm looking for an organization that's about something, like serious, not just like blah 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 blah, not that just co-opted invisible man type stuff, or sellout stuff, but like yo is identifying authentically black, African, identifying with one's ancestry, and not just sell out, kind of do what the white mainstream America wants, and is about like doing something like on the ground, like yo, get it done, and independent. So, and then belonging, being included within set everything. So those are the reasons why I get involved, and a lot of kinfolk. Let the smooth taste fool them, particularly at that time. It's like, oh, he's a pretty boy. Oh, light skinned, da 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 da. He don't know that. So anyway, we complete the process. Um, This isn't perhaps not as relevant because the point I'm getting to is, um, what we learn about the nature, the phenomena of pledging. And I'll say it here, and I'll see if it's necessary to go back to what I'm thinking about sidetracking with. But what we learn is the purpose in the punishments, and beyond the selfish and the greediness. Big brothers can be greedy and ignorant, and just like want to get their rocks off or whatever else. So there's all that different type of stuff, and we trust that there's not just the inevitability of getting through it, but that there's also purpose. Like this is being done for a reason. Like when a parent punishes a child for misbehaving or whatever, or done some discipline, parent says, well, you might not know why I'm doing this right now, but one day you'll understand. That's kind of like with the pledge process. So I'll just say this very briefly. I guess is my own kind of like insecurity or whatever, dealing with like the stigmatization that exists within the fraternity culture. But again, people talk about who pledges hard, who pledges true, who's the actual real, and who just got like their paper signed or whatever, or who got their like the hookup or whatever. And so that's the thing. Paper means that somebody just they just signed the membership paper, whatever, and didn't do anything, like didn't go through nothing to get it. They might have studied the books or whatever, but they didn't do anything. They didn't see anybody. They didn't get any wood, meaning hits. They didn't go through any kind of like physical or mental kind of tribulation to earn their stripes. They just signed the paper and got it. That's what paper means. Skating means that they went through something, but it was hardly anything. Like it was just like a little fluffy program or whatever else. And so because that kinfolk aren't tough, they aren't hard, they ain't strong. Don't rely upon them. They fake. They might have money, they might have this and that, but don't buy into it because they ain't go through anything. They don't know what they're doing. And some of it involves like they don't have the knowledge, because that's usually how the knowledge is conferred. Is somebody goes through, they take the licks, they take the beatings, and then they get the knowledge. They said, okay, here you got through that. Now I'm going to teach you something. And so, and the way to tell if somebody's paper or plastic, or proven is whether they have that knowledge. Because the kinfolk, the hardcore, hard knocks kinfolk who have the knowledge, the only way they generally provide it is by somebody going through that and then saying, okay, I've seen you, I've seen you. Now here's your knowledge, and here's the proof that I've seen you because I'm sharing with you what I know. So when other kinfolk see each other, go to chapters and everything, visit and everything else, they're like, oh yeah, and then we gotta provide hospitality without question up front. But then at the same time, when we get into the set, by the set I'm talking about at that time, like, yo, we go into the hospitality joint or whatever, women around, whatever. Then we get into the choir room, yo. So you know this, and we start to charge each other like, what you know. You claim you supporting the gear, and you claim the set, what you know, and that's how we find out like who's real and whatever else. And so now everybody's not going to know everything, and so we have to recognize that. And if there's if anybody doesn't have an answer to our questions or what we know about them, then that's when we say, okay, we're gonna have to break out the wood, brother. And we got to see what you about, and that's trading hits. We don't do that on our side at this point because, like I said, we can take the hits if cats want to do that. We'll take the hits, but we're not hitting anybody because that's our spiritual path. And the frat has to recognize that and respect that because that's part of what the frat does, and that's what part of the frat is about, even though it's not the direct forefront of the teachings and conditioning. There's an implicit Christianity and religiosity within the fraternity. There's reference to God, and additionally, and it's coming from an experience of the Black Church from 100 years ago. So there is a very strong deference to spirituality and Christianity specifically, and plus the whole American Greek church and state kind of situation. But it's other than like the explicit, this is our religious beliefs or otherwise, because it's comparatively secular. So anyways, but because of our religious purposes and what Jesus teaches us and what our other prophets teach us, and what God confers to us, we're prohibited from striking people in general terms. So anyways, so if cats want to call us out and question us on what you know, you don't answer it, okay, we can trade. And it's trading. It's like once a person crosses, it's not a matter of they getting licks because if they didn't answer the question, it's we trade. So if a brother doesn't trust another brother, okay, yeah, man, I'm not buying what you're doing. We got to trade. And then in that situation, the brother who doesn't trust the other brother, well, you can decide which one goes first. But yo, the swag, and then okay, back at you, swag. Okay, are we satisfied now? All right, let's keep on going. All right, so my point is this. When I'm in online, lots of cats have all different types of things to say about our process. My line in particularly, it was just going back on the yard. The big brothers were off the yard at that point. It was facilitated by the grad chapter. The Dean of Pledges was a staff member at who was from a different chapter, so that played into it. But the old heads from our chapter are still very much there and see us when we are online. I'm not going to get into too many details, but what I will say is this. There are extenuating circumstances our year because at the same time, so much details. At the same time, we are online. There's another brother who got killed online. It gets serious, and that's not the intention or whatever, but that's what happened. Another brother at another chapter got killed in that process, and so when that happens, the whole fraternity went on shutdown. And so our process was expedited because there was about to be a moratorium. There was about to be like nobody into the frat for an extended period of time, and that's actually what happened. Just shortly thereafter, there was a year-long moratorium. So, is that yeah, because we didn't have a line my junior year, as I remember. So yeah, there was a year-long moratorium. So just when our chapter got back on the yard, large line. So again, large line. How many was you? 50? Wow. 50, huh? Hey, we do what we do. So, and we do it strong. So, we got back on the yard. 50, expedited process because somebody got killed. Peace and blessings to the brother who returns the ancestors. And then the moratorium for a year. So then from that, that lends itself to all different types of suspect and skate and this, that, and the other. So again, it's like, okay, no, not paper, because we go through something, so you can't call us paper and try to be legit. Anybody can call anybody skate. Um, and and again, if you don't like, if you don't think the cat's hard enough, you don't think that cat's strong enough, yo, here we go. You got the wood, whatever. So, anyways, that's it. And also, every chapter has this different way of getting in the cut and taking wood. And I'm gonna show you how we. Uh, I have to be mindful of how I say this. Beta Chi is where I'm from, and Beta Chi has a specific way of doing it. In my spiritual path, I am from another chapter that's known around the frat, but in a different type of way, and that's called Chapter Invisible. OD, what's he talking about? In one of the ways, I continue to claim and am Beta Chi, but some of the protocols are from Chapter Invisible, and cats know that's no joke. That's no joke. We're in the spiritual realm, brother. That's what we're talking about. One of the ways of getting in the cut. It's simply this: you want to hit me, you want to inflict blows on me, brother. Here I am. And brethren should know I'm not coming at no brethren. I'm just saying what it is. So, and this is a whole another side note. So, anyways, it's all peace and blessings. It's all the bond. You can feel the heart. You can feel the heart. So, there's a lot for the frat to learn too, because there's a lot that's going on at this moment, and there's a lot that's needed to get frat through what's going on right now. And all right. What just happened? I'm not gonna translate it all, but the tears are gonna have to drop though. So, all right. The diamonds in the sky are bright. The diamonds in the sky are bright. And sometimes it hurts the eyes. You hear me now? All right. So point here is getting back on track, is that there's purpose in the pledging. And that in the pains, whether even when the pains are selfish and greedy bullshit, just exploitation and getting over on people, there is motherfucking purpose to the pain. Shun not the struggle. Why? For it is God's gift. All the pain, it is God's gift. The shackles, the middle passage, kinfolk being thrown overboard, babies being killed, mothers being slit open. It is God's gift. What the fuck am I talking about? Ming Tzu says it very well from China. When the heavens are preparing to confer upon a man tremendous responsibilities and authority in this earth, the heavens first put upon the man tremendous burdens, affliction, the crucible, to prepare him for the weight of those gifts. It is a pledge process. Everything, everything is a pledge process to prepare us for the next step, for the next stage. It's all God. It's all God preparing us for the next. And how we respond to that determines our path, whether we get enveloped in some devolving whirlpool because of our own responses to the pledge. Or do we don't like kinfolk chopping it up at us? Are we going to respond with greed, hatred, and delusion? Or are we going to respond with righteousness? Everything is a pledge process. All the stress, all the bullshit, all the injustice, all the affliction, all the atrocities, all the torture, all the rape, all the pillaging, all the killing, all the pedophilia, all the cannibalism. It is a pledge process. It's a test, but not just a test, a preparation. And it's choose your own adventure. Based on what we've learned, do we respond with strength and fortitude, but also balance and fairness and love and compassion? Or we just respond with similar bullshit, violence, and hatred, and then just get entwined and tangled up in that mesh? Or do we maintain our posture and utilize our skills to hold and share and help and keep at a distance? That's all the pledge process. Sometimes it's easier to see than others. Sometimes we're not trying to hear it at this time. We're not trying to go through this at this time. We just started doing what we thought we were supposed to do, and now this comes through. We have to learn our skills of deliberation and discrimination, flexibility, adjustment, fortitude, and staying focused, and knowing when to do what the priorities are, what the purpose is. Pledge process. And when cats is kicking up dust and causing pollution and doing little provocations, pledge process. Is it personal? It's providence. It's both. When I'm in Denmark, in the refugee camp, stressed where I'm going to be in life, just a few years ago, in my 40s, have yet to be married and with children proper. And now I'm in another country, seeking political asylum, with the prospect of living in that country for the rest of my life and not knowing whether I'll be able to leave that country or ever return back to see family and friends here. Stress, and kinfolk all around me are in that same situation. Refugees leaving from Syria and Iran and Nigeria. Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Vietnam. It is a surreal experience. And because one, there's the official being, it's a pledge process, is what I'm saying. Because it's not a guarantee. We're being evaluated. Our cases are being decided. So we have to play a game of being accepted. And even though the law is a matter of like legit, like no, there's persecution, this person qualifies for asylum. It's still a case-by-case decision. It's still politics. It's still bullshit and everything else. It's a pledge process. And amidst all the racism and lies and criminality and everything else like that, it's from the Most High. And what I recognize in that process, particularly when I'm walking through Copenhagen, that one day I had a free pass to go on the train. They had no money, no phone. I had a free pass to go on to the transit, the trains, the regional trains, as well as the metro in Copenhagen, and the buses. So I could go to different places and had to decide where I'm going to go. I had an interview with one of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Immigration um, uh, office in Copenhagen, which is why I had the pass. But with that pass, I could travel to other places throughout the day, that one day before going back to the refugee camp. No money. And so I hit up some places, but just going through Copenhagen because that was my one time of I was there on my way to the refugee camp, but it was very brief. And then that was my one day of just being there. So no sightseeing, no time for that. Just trying to like hustle and get from one office to another to see who I can talk with at that one moment, face to face in person. But I see Copenhagen. I see the land where my grandfather is born and raised. Technically, my grandfather is born in Holbæk. And I'm feeling the culture of my kinfolk, and feeling the culture of that land of my ancestors, the vibration, and I'm also experiencing in seeing the culture in Denmark. There's definitely vibe. And it's a very heady vibe. It's a very it's a very strong cipher. To be honest, it's a strong cipher of just like people just being super intelligent, and it's just like going to a place and everybody just like super tall or super can live in high elevation and don't have any breathing problems. It's like that's what it is in Denmark. Just everybody just is like has wheels turning very fast, and it's very palpable, and in that, not necessarily the most welcoming, and at the same time, not necessarily the most hostile, but in being very cerebral, the type of mind fuckery is just like up there, and it's not like American fake pretenses or whatever. It's different. It's like almost like a pure mind fuckery. It's like there's no pollution mind fuckery, and knowing like part of the culture is also like nasty violence and torture and then also escapism in terms of alcohol and meat and sex, but in terms of the headiness, like it's like almost unadulterated mind fuckery, if that makes sense, kind of sort of. Anyways, and so when going through that stress of like not knowing what the path in life is, going directly, specifically, tangibly, dealing with like this high level of mindfuckery just as a general culture, it's surreal, and that's when it becomes further evident of the whole process for myself, particularly being a pledge process preparation for sovereignty, of knowing the sovereign mindset, of what it means to sit at the world table with authority and accountability and credibility and trust amongst the others at the table, of recognition of being a world sovereign. And as a world sovereign, can't complain. You're not a rebel. You're not a revolutionary. You're not some subordinate entity that's trying to overthrow an unjust authoritarian structure. You are a sovereign. And now you man up, woman up. Don't blame anybody else for what's going on. You're a sovereign. You don't have that luxury. You're in the crew now. We recognize you. We're not your parents. We're not going to provide for you in that respect. You got to bring your own to the table. But you have a seat now. It's a very modest seat. It's not lower, but it might be smaller or whatever. It might be a smaller plate because you mixed Rastafari kinfolk just getting started. Technically speaking, we all come from the ancestors. We all come from creation. But at the see the world table right now, you got a seat, no complaint, everything else like that. It's a pledge process to receive that mindset. Now, there's many ways of doing that, but that's what it is, and it's nasty, but that's part of the purpose. And from that, it's like, okay, we gotta like process this, absorb it, and find out how to continue to roll, particularly the nature of the sovereignty that we have, which we don't have land, and that's one of the typical things that sovereignty has is land. And so we still have sovereignty, but we don't have land, and we're not supposed to have land. So we have to continue to navigate and negotiate the practicalities of being sovereign and living within the auspices and graces and cooperation of other sovereignty. Um, and that's that indigenous sovereignty, because that's the only other sovereignty. We can still negotiate with um, to certain degrees with imperial sovereignties, earthly sovereignties, but any of that agreement also has to exist in conjunction with proper understandings and cooperation with indigenous sovereignty. So, anyways, and it's a pledge process in that whole time of like all going through all the like talking with people, the officials, the immigration officials, and just be going. It's like this, what you're saying is so bullshit. What you talking about? Come on, that's I know that's against the law. You know that's against the law. What you're saying. It's a pledge process because law is inconsequential at that point. There is no international law for sovereigns. Just like there's no law for lawyers, there's no law for senators. Senators make up the laws, according on paper, and so senators have a very keen knowledge about the law, how it works, and everything else like that. But when people make the laws, there is no law, and that's what's scary. It's there, and that's why people. Well, all right, I'm gonna leave it at that. So at the moment, we're not having the beep beep beeps and drills and saws at the moment. We might have had that moment, as I was talking about, but now it's like the landscaping engines. Um, when weed blowers or whatever else it is, and if it's not one engine, it's another. If it's not some type of dust, it's another. And it seems orchestrated, like choreographed. Um, as long as somebody's making noise, all the landowners scheduling their work being done so that during the day, each day, there's always some noise going on. And that might again sound like hysterical and paranoia, whatever. But understand, like the buildings that are around you, particularly in suburban, urban cities, and additionally, those are claimed by people, and understand like what goes on in terms of maintaining that, not just in terms of the physicality, but also the social behavior and compliance of within the community. Uh, the techniques for managing the collective behavior and stress levels to guide kinfolk in certain directions or keep kinfolk in certain confines. And that sounds like some people don't want to think about things to that extreme. Some people don't want to think about things in detail. People don't want to think about things all the time. They need a break. They're not trying to hear all that. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And those who do want to think about that and do want to be stressed and live that life, go up the ranks in terms of the conventional hierarchy. And like again, we learn a lot of this. I should say some of this of like the tenacious tactics, psychology, even just like the notion of department stores. Now this is 20, 30 years ago. Department stores doing scientific research about fragrances, and putting different specific type of fragrances in department stores so that people have this natural and increased intoxication to spend money. There's billions and billions and billions further amount of money, dollars, that go into research about how to influence people's behavior. And that was 20, 30 years ago when I was studying graduate school. Explicitly, this is what we learn. And this is what we have to learn in order to like get a job in doing it. Commercials, but now it's next level because again, this whole internet thing, it's like it's next level type stuff. So when I say these things, it might sound like craziness. Oh, because a lot of people don't know it and don't want to know it, don't want to see it, and then just pretend it doesn't exist. So that, and those who do know it don't want to say it because they don't want to give away their secrets of how they keep things going. So it's just like this blissful ignorance as long as everybody gets their drug, sex, and meat. Ada. So when people do learn it and have that knowledge, whether it's through going to graduate school, whether it's through studying scriptures or otherwise, and get that knowledge, and then still want to identify people and have honesty, they don't want to do that game, and they try to tell people about it. A lot of times people say, "What you talking about?" And they know, "Oh, look who's standing behind you," kind of situation. So because that's part of the stakes when revealing truth to the masses. So when the masses respond with denial and whatever, betrayal. Anyway, all right, we're talking about pledging. There's a purpose to it. Crybaby going back into cracking jokes again. I might be making sense. Like my whole thing might be like better understood now. The linearity, the sequence, even like the efficiency. So, pledge process. Life is a pledge process. um, so that applies to conditions at this moment. Um, all the again the little tiddlywink stuff, the provocations, um, intentional, unintentional, half awake, chained by demons or whatever else. It's all a pledge process for all involved, but particularly for those who are awake enough to see that and to acknowledge that. There's further purpose here. So it doesn't alleviate the challenge. It doesn't alleviate in and of itself. Just that knowledge that, okay, this is a pledge process. Okay, fine. Now it doesn't hurt. No, it still hurts. So then we have to learn the tools of how to deal with that, and so that doesn't hurt, or it doesn't hurt nearly as much. And that's where prayer, meditation, study, discipline come in establishing a regular routine of behavior and rejuvenation of body, mind, heart, and spirit, that has a resilience and a comparative indifference to all the provocations, like a whale in the deep seas, and the little fish come up and like bite on the whale, whatever growths are growing on the whale or whatever. That's what it's like. Just, okay, here it is again. That's not condescending. That's just a metaphor. All right. I'm getting into another topic, and it particularly pertains to black kinfolk in the United States. And this is with love. This is love and truth, as much as we can conjure and muster. So when we talk about pledge process, recognizing that where black kinfolk are today is a pledge process, and in this process, there's basically two options for black folk, and I don't want to sound top down, and I don't want to sound pejorative. This is with all due respect. All due respect. They're basically two, and this is like recently shared. There are two options that we see black kinfolk having, because the foundations are crumbling. And like things are you do not see it now. Anyways, so what the advice is, this is one of two things: either Africa, go to Africa, connect with African kinfolk, learn our African heritage. And when I say our, I'm African, I'm world as well. I could say our from other vantages as well. I'm speaking specifically in the context of African experience. Black people in the United States. Africa. Go to Africa. Be with Africa. For better and for worse. It's not a utopia. It's going to be challenges. It's going to be tests and pledging continually. That's life. but it is further supportive of people of African ancestry. And Africa has a lot to do to step up, as I've said just recently, to do that. As I think I was falling asleep, now I'm just waking up from that. So this is what I'm doing these days. Didn't do my prayer and meditation today, so that says something too. Africa, that's the one option. The other option is to attach oneself to mixed people. What you want us to be your boys, to be your servants, whatever. Africa, option one. Option two, I'm not saying be subservient or subordinate, but attach, connect, support mixed people for being mixed. And like, if you're going to attach your wagon to something, if you're going to stay outside of Africa, you're attaching your wagon to something else, whether it's white America or otherwise, if you're going to be honest about it. So if you're going to do that, if you're not going to go back to Africa, attach your wagons to mixed folk, people who do have African ancestry. Even if you don't identify with that, you don't agree with that, you don't like that, you're attaching your wagon to white folk already by staying in the United States, speaking the English language. And that is inadvisable at this moment, at this point, as things are going on. And I can't say specifically how things play out. However, the most prudent, either go back to Africa or attach yourself with mixed people, and not try to own mixed people, not try to tell mixed people what's what, or qualify, or say, oh, you're not this, that, and the other, or gatekeep. No, you don't have that luxury. And that's the point here. You don't have that luxury. Black folk are out of pocket in the United States at this moment. Africa or mixed people. Why? Because in being African slaves, there's a credibility with the world and recognition of the affliction. However, there's been world wars. There's been multiple wars. And black folk have directly participated and gone out onto other lands and killed other people in Europe, in Japan, in Vietnam, against China, in Korea, in the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan. And additionally, black folk have gone out and killed other people in other lands in the name of the United States. That takes away the credibility of black suffering in the United States. So the world says, oh, you want to be like free and everything, but you going out and killing and reaping the benefits with your American oppressors, Mr. Black man and black woman. Facts. So the credibility and the support in the worldview, this is the worldview towards black folk in the United States, is like, wait, nah, man, Black Lives Matter, what y'all talking about? Y'all going out here and y'all whipping, and we seeing the hip hop, and you're doing this bling bling, and you suffering. Black Lives Matter, and here you are, P Diddy, and all the big shots, and you coming over here killing our people, and taking the benefits, military benefits, education, and everything. Come on with that. You hear me now? You hear us now? So that the credibility has been significantly deteriorated, and that's been through the generations, accumulatively, and there's still been still a certain semblance of like recognition of the plight, and additionally, but at the same time, just by attaching as a collective, and it's not everybody's doing it, and a lot of people in the black community are speaking exactly against that, but still, we're still associating. And we're still connected, and we're still getting the benefits of that, even when it's just going to the store and getting products at a discount price. The world's like, yeah, nah, come on, yeah, we're not getting that, we're not buying that, and the world ain't innocent either. But again, black people have some type of presumption of, in this subordinate role of expectation of other people to care about black people. That's part of the psychological pimpology within black folk. Of thinking that getting this complain, I haven't put the rice out, of having this like complain trope of just talking about suffering, and that's going to get a paycheck. because it has, and it does earn a paycheck by those who are causing the pain. To stay trapped and stay. All right, I'm gonna go off that. All right, the ball that's hot. Woody. That's very, 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 very hot. So, anyways, like I said, the credibility has considerably lessened through the generations, and particularly within generation, particularly after affirmative action, and when black people in large numbers proactively pursue immersion within the mainstream and the constructs, the convention, and the trappings of the United States. So, because of that, there's less credibility and support for the black cause within the United States, even though there rightfully should be. There's rightful cause for there to be support. And not all black folk have bought into those things. There's still the effect of guilt by association type of situation. Now that's one thing. Then like what the kicker of it, like kind of, I won't say seals the deal, but thereabouts, is Obama, because now there's a black face as the head of the oppression. So now by definition it can't be this way, because now there's a black face, and that's all intentional. It's orchestrated that way. That's like that was like a last ditch effort for America to sustain itself. Yeah, okay, yeah, the sparrows are recognizing, yo, that's hot. Yeah, I know. Okay, sparrow's eating it little by little, petit à petit. The sparrow mange son food. I know it's hot. The sparrow's like, yo, it's hot, but it's food. I gotta eat it. All right. Take it to go. Come back for more. Set up the stove. We village for show. All right. All right. So we're talking about credibility and talking about Obama, and like again, I have never voted at all. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I wasn't a U.S. citizen when Obama was elected. The second time Obama was elected, I was thrown in jail that day. Congratulations. In Iraq, when people voted for the first time after the so-called revolution, whatever, the freeing, the liberation of the United States, one of the symbols of like modernity and freedom and everything was Iraqis having a purple thumb to show that they voted, that now we own our own place. It's official. We own our own place. It's not just America. We own our own place. We practice democracy now. That was the thing, was it 20, 30 years ago, whatever. So we see in the newspapers and everything, young, beautiful aunties, Iraq, and uncles and everything, showing their thumbs or whatever, on election day. So on election day here, when Obama's elected that second day, re-elected, haha. I was locked up that day, and for the next week, I was locked up in a holding cell. And the condition for me removing is by me sitting at the cell and not fighting the police officer taking my thumb and getting a thumbprint. That was like the concession of just some kind of, we need to get something from you, Peter. Like, just symbolically, we need to get something from you to let you go. We're not going to process you. We're not going to charge you because we know it's going to be bad business. But we need something. Come on. Can you throw us a bone? Here's my thumb. They took my thumbprint, and then, okay, free to go. That's it. So when I got home after that week, that was my election photograph. I voted. Anyway, all right. And that's a whole nother. Oh, I'm not going to get into that. All right. So again, when the collective country votes for Obama, even regardless of his relationship with black folk, how much black folk do or don't support him, every black folk who voted and participated in the process for him or otherwise, and, like done sold out the cause, and sold out, undermined the credibility of the black cause in the world's eye. Because even further, already black folk have been fighting in the wars. Now there's a president, so y'all definitely can't come at us now. What you talking about? Black Lives Matter? That's why it's so fake. All right, no, not trying to shade, but we're at this point. Like, there's no time for like these pretend co-opted, what they call it, planted plants, and that's a derogatory term towards botany. Um, and then what's the further kicker? Oh yeah, so why as things are crumbling at this moment, that why the options are so severe, because that you already know, like, there's no love on this land, or excuse me, not on this land, because this land is Inamaka. There's always love. There's no land amongst the society of this people for black folk. You already know that. You already know that. That's a strong, absolute statement. You, when you understand the language, you know what I'm saying. So I'm not even gonna like address that presumption or accusation. You know, there's no love in this society for black people. You already know that. With how much people want to pretend or otherwise, you know that. And so you know it's been always a matter of leverage and stepping up and flexing and studying and everything else and holding it down and everything else in the process. And it's at this point, as the society is crumbling and reestablishing itself in a different form, not to rely upon the progressive methodologies of subordination, the welfare check, to get off that. Oh, he's saying get off that welfare check. Cats want to call me out on that. Let's sit down and reason about that and speak knowledgeably. Everything comes from God. Everything is provided from Inamaka. And there are a lot of pretenses about how people explain or rationalize these processes. World system, United Nations, United States, and further. Subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary. Know how the game works before making accusations and conclusions. So, what in the worldview towards black folk in the United States, as I said, lost significant credibility with fighting in the wars. Not acknowledgement that it's not everybody, but at the same time, that don't bring our loved ones back to life who black folk done killed in the different lands around the world. It hasn't reduced the oppression of the of the U.S. military machinery and imperialism that black folk are directly participating in, supporting, and contributing, either as military personnel, through taxation, through black people paying taxes, through black people working for companies, and additionally that are supporting that. So black people are involved in U.S. imperialism and its imposition around the world. And it's one of the reasons why the world cares less and it responds less to what happens to black folk. In the United States, the credibility has been significantly reduced. Then there's Obama, which now, like, that's the symbolism, and that's like, now the children are like, yeah, what are you talking about? How can there be oppression in the United States when that's their president? Not even knowing about the history one way or the other. It's like, that doesn't make sense. Like, just naturally, intrinsically, it doesn't make sense. That's one thing. Now, like, I won't say again, it's not the final straw, but one of the big kickers at this point is that it is increasingly tenuous, and it is increasingly desperate, and it's like there are unprecedented methodologies of talking about when we talk about the game. It's not even the streets. It's not even the police. It's the cannibalism and it's the pedophilia. Um, and it's around the world. So it's not a matter of expecting the world to come to the rescue when the world is going through it itself. The question is how much you can get, how much we can get out of it. And the last kind of like ditch effort, whatever, was the stimulus check. Facts. And I don't do money like that. So I didn't myself dig into stimulus check. How much a stimulus check translated to whatever was provided to me through another means, I can speak less of at this moment, and it's comparatively irrelevant. But the fact is, for those kinfolk of black heritage, of African heritage on this land and this continent, um, there is provided a window, and it's again recognizing that there are these windows of opportunity that are provided, and when people squander that, that's on them. That's on cats. That's on cats. And there's like, yo, you had your opportunity. So with the stimulus check, and I said this when it was happening, that is an opportunity for those who are still in the system and or whatever else to go to Africa and get a plane ticket and go to Africa. Um, if people aren't already doing that on their own, and people talk about, yo, stack up your money and do things responsibly, everything. No, that's not what people said to Ukraine when the bombs were going off and everything. So it's a very double standard, even within black folk, particularly when black folk themselves have their own money. Now, I observe like a number of black folk. Okay, I don't want to do divisiveness. Don't want to do divisiveness right here. But just to be honest, like for black folk to recognize, it doesn't take a lot of money. You don't need a lot of money. Yes, it's not going to be comfortable. Yes, it's not going to be easy. Yes, Ghana or Nigeria, whatever else, might not be the most like, oh, y'all coming over again? Yeah, motherfucker. Ante up. The typical way of migrating to another place is stacking money, having things, getting land titles, and getting permits and doing all the things in a legal way or whatever else. That's the typical way. Yes, that's standard. That's legitimate. However, there are extenuating circumstances here, and black folk are indigenous to Africa, and Africa sold black folk out. So Africa has a responsibility, an obligation to not just receive black kinfolk, but to bring back black kinfolk at the very least. So all this, make sure you're responsible and this, that, and the other, in many ways, yes. But for vast numbers of tens of millions of black folk in this country who realistically don't have those things and ain't going to have those things anytime soon as things are crumbling, yo, Ghana, ante up. Nigeria, ante up. Cote d'Ivoire, ante up. Uganda, ante up. South Africa, ante up. Ethiopia, ante up. Senegal, ante up. Gambia, ante up. Do I need to keep on going? Benin, ante up. Togo, ante up. Cameroon, ante up. Angola, ante up. Zimbabwe, ante up. Namibia, ante up. Botswana, ante up. Zambia, ante up. Lesotho, ante up. Swaziland, ante up. Madagascar, ante up. Mozambique, ante up. Kenya, ante up. Rwanda, ante up. Burundi, ante up. Chad, ante up. Egypt, ante up. Tunisia, ante up. Morocco, ante up. Western Sahara, ante up. Libya, ante up. Algeria, ante up. There's someplace else out there. Eritrea, ante up. Somalia, ante up. Djibouti, ante up. Sudan, ante up. Southern Sudan, ante up. All these kinfolk who benefit from what black folk have done amidst the wars and everything else for the decolonization of Africa, for the establishment of presidents like Kwame Nkrumah, and additionally studying at our universities that we established, Lincoln University, HBCUs. Oh, there's big advertisements for year of return, tourism, spending money, Afrobeats, Afrochella, and otherwise. What is Africa doing to love and support and build with our children? If we're going to call out China and Japan and Korea, what about Africa too? Yo, that's facts. So now I'll tell you, I'll tell you what our experience is, my personal experience is. We love Africa, love Ghana, have yet to walk the land, want to very much, try to very much. When I was kicked out of the airport in leaving the country without a U.S. passport a couple years ago. Um, and then I went to the Potomac area. There are two embassies that I directly, physically consult with, visited. And I can explain, I can articulate the experience at both of the embassies. Very different and very interesting, quasi-supportive, but at the same time, stiff arm in different ways. So already beforehand, before reaching the embassies, what is known is that at that time, again, this is when COVID is going on and everything else like that, I'm not vaccinated. I don't have a passport. So those are huge travel credentials amidst severe travel restrictions already going on. We had already experienced an embargo of imports with our co-op, and additionally, so the border like flexing was already going on, and like affecting our economic situation, our rice and beans and everything that were living off of. So that was already a situation with the border situation, in our international relations, affecting our international relations. So that was already going on at that point. And then when I attempt to leave with a world passport, I get accosted. So then I go to the embassies to negotiate and look into the securing of travel credentials issued from the embassies that would be accepted by the airlines to facilitate travel. Had the means, had the airline ticket, so that wasn't the issue. The issue was the airline ticket. The airline would not accept the identification, and that's the airline's prerogative. But at the same time, what's the law? What's the rule? And the airline wouldn't say that. So now we have to go to the embassies to find out, to gain the credentials, either just a simple visa based upon the world passport, or further credentials for the satisfaction of the airline, which is not a nation and doesn't have the same obligations and protocols concerning like the immigration official allowing somebody to enter into the country. But it still is very legitimate security concerns as the airline facilitating travel between countries. So that's legitimate. But at the same time, what are the rules? And it's not. And that's the thing. Even when at any country, any border agent has the prerogative of rejecting or not rejecting, rejecting or accepting. And it might be called out on upon it. And if somebody has backup, they may have to it might get legal. So they have to have some reason. But ultimately, a border crossing agent can accept or reject anybody's passport for any kind of like semblance of legitimate reason. So, anyways, I go to like secure a process before all of that, to go directly to the embassies to like say how can we go there and how can we secure the credentials so that the airlines will accept it and we can go to the country. So what we know beforehand, before going to the Danish embassy, I go to the Danish embassy and I go to the Ghanaian embassy, because those are the two nations that are most proximate within my familial language. Basically speaking, I could have gone to the Swedish embassy, I could have gone to the Indian embassy. Otherwise, those are the two main ones, particularly that can see my lineage without necessarily knowing all of my personal history or verifying my personal history. Denmark is very readily known because my grandfather was born there. The names are there in the register that can be recognized and acknowledged from Denmark towards myself. Ghana is just off rip. Ghana already knows, and that's not the first time I've been to the Ghanaian embassy. After I came back from South Africa, my roommate and I went to Ghana and looked into dual citizenship like a few years, actually like 25 years ago. Was it 20? Let's say 20 years ago. 22, 23 years ago. So, anyways, I had gone to the Ghanaian embassy before, less motivated, and it was kind of like I won't say a cursory. It was like a scouting thing of like, so how readily available is this? And that was 23 years ago when I was still in law school, because we're still looking for solutions at that time. Like, yeah, I know U.S. ain't it, so is it Ghana? Because South Africa was just a long way away, just geographically and also psychologically. But what about Ghana? And plus, Ghana is further where our ancestors are from, the land where our ancestors are from. So, want to know about dual citizenship with Ghana. And anyways, that was 23 years ago. So when I went to the Ghanaian embassy this time, 2 years ago, there are two different situations. What we knew beforehand, it was this. very converse policies on both sides in different ways. For Denmark, it was this. Denmark is, you can come over, and again, mind you, it's not just a matter of politics. It's not just a matter of national identity or citizenship. It's also a matter of status in terms of vaccination and having those science-based credentials. So now it's not even a matter of politics or citizenship. It's a matter of science-based restrictions of travel, and additionally, and so there's semblance of legitimacy within those reasons, but then there's a whole lot of flex and subordination and behavioral control, about border control, even between the United States and Canada, based on scientific protocols rather than law. So, and rather than law, you can argue that have fun with yourself. Denmark's situation, before I even go to the Danish embassy, is this. Um, Danish citizenship is technically less available to me as an automatic thing because um, there's not a grandfather clause. It's a parental clause. So if a parent is or has been a citizen of Denmark, then a person can be a citizen or a permanent resident, one or the other. And then, but if it's a person's grandparent, for some, I think it had to be like two grandparents, both sides. I mean, it was just enough that my personal case did not qualify for that. So that's one thing. Now, meanwhile, a person can arrive and apply for and gain. Denmark was the first one to sign the Convention on Refugees after the Second World War, after Jewish immigrants flee from the Holocaust, and there's the whole experience of Hashoah and World War II. So Denmark was the first to sign the Convention on Refugees. So that's one thing, regardless of that being one of my ancestral homelands. So Denmark says, in terms of being a citizen, it's a little bit iffy. Refugee, it's very likely, very strong. Come over, no questions asked. You can come over, or what I should say, you can, however you get here. Once you get here, then we'll talk about it. And you're welcome to be here. You don't have to have vaccination. If you don't have vaccination, we do like people to have a quarantine process. But you get here, we won't ask you how you got here. It could be legal, it could be illegal. That literally said it on the immigration website. It could be legal or illegal. We're not gonna fault you for that. Once you're here, we will process you. We'll talk with you, and we'll talk at that point. But just get here first, and then we'll talk. That's basically it. And you are welcome to be here. You can get here. We will let you in. That's what Denmark says. So okay, and also mind you, when I go to that's what I know before going. When I go to the Danish embassy, but I'm going to the Danish embassy just to like, yo, serious, and plus, yo, I'm Danish. What's going on? So all that being said, when I go to the Danish embassy, they wouldn't open the gates, and it's one of the plush embassies that's off in the cut in the compound, so it's not right there. So there's intercom, there's a camera, and so I hit the buzzer, and they talk through me with the intercom, and so they're very cordial in talking with me at the intercom, but they wouldn't open the gates. Staff member comes by with their bicycle and gets in. I'm not going to rush the gates, and that's another test, just implicitly, and then continue on with the conversation with the official inside, and they say just get to Denmark, and then we'll talk. At confirmation of what is articulated beforehand. So okay, that's that policy. It's not the best favorable situation, but okay, there is some thing. I have to get there. That's how we're gonna get there. Then the second one is going to Ghana. Okay, we got the answer from Denmark. Let's go to Ghana. Now Ghana lets me in. I do a temperature test, but it's satisfactory. And there's a whole lot of like looking at me like, yo. And again, it's a tenuous situation at that moment. You know, I eventually did get something like a few days later, whatever, by staying in the hostel and black kinfolk smoking out, in like 6-7 brethren in a room, and bunk beds in a hostel. And these are DC locals who are just like finding a place to stay, smoking out, tough in the room, coughing all over the place, to the point where after a few days of that, yo, I could not swallow anything, not even saliva. So that was days later. But in the meanwhile, before that, going to the embassies, I go to the Ghanaian embassy. I pass the temperature test, and so I'm in the holding area where the security is, and they open the gates and let me in and talk to an official. So they let me in the gates. They let me into the compound. It's comparatively immediate with the street, but they let me in and they talk with me. Actually, I think the brethren was at the desk, and I sat down at the in the waiting area or whatever, and we talked through there. And again, there's protocols with distancing or whatever. So I'm not hating on that, because I've been in that same spot before, like I said, years before that, and there was very much cordiality and responsiveness. So I talked with the brethren, and again, long conversation, beautiful, congenial conversation, very responsive. But the policies are just like what I knew beforehand. What I knew beforehand already was that Ghana was not letting people in. Ghana was not letting people cross the borders who were not vaccinated. And that's not the policies of Ghana. That's the policies of science being imposed upon Ghana. And so Ghana didn't have control over its own borders. And that's just recognizing it. So that's not hating. I mean, there's a responsibility for that. There's culpability, but we understand, like, the game. It's not. I mean, there's answerability for that. But still, I mean, we understand what the circumstances are. So that's one of the reasons why I go there. Just like, yo, how can we make this done, brother? Did I not say brother to Denmark? I do. Ask the politi. So, how we get this done? And the brother's like, don't know. And then so we talk about, well, what about dual citizenship and this, that, and the other? And the brother's like, yo, we feel you, bro. And we're like, yo, what, this whole year of return and this, that, and the other? Yeah, we it would be nice. And that was challenging. So yeah, I was in the Ghanaian embassy talking to Ghanaian brethren. There was some type of football being played at that moment on the television. I remember that. I seem to remember that. But basically, there wasn't a reassurance from Ghana, and that's on Ghana, because Ghana has a considerable obligation, not just to say yes. Brethren in blue shirts and placards. Ghana has a considerable obligation, not just to say yes, but to go out and be proactive. Go into the hoods of New York and LA and Miami and Houston and Chicago, and additionally DC, all the lands of Inamaka here, all the cities where black folk are in large populations. Go out and recruit people to go back to Ghana. That's the nature of the responsibility and obligation that Ghana has, that Nigeria has, that Togo and Benin and Cameroon and Senegal all have, Cote d'Ivoire all have. It's not just a matter of saying yes when the question is asked. It's a matter of going out and be like, brethren, we see you're hurting. We know you've helped. We know we've betrayed. We've betrayed. You've helped. And we have opportunity. We have availability. It's not much, but we do. We have something to share. And we see you need it. We've betrayed. You've helped. We have. You need. How about that? That's the campaign. For African nations to proactively recruit Africans in the United States specifically to return now. Ghana didn't do that a couple years ago, and that's why I didn't go to Ghana. Comparatively plain and simple. And cats can fault me, and I should have tried harder, this other, whatever. So I go to Denmark, because Denmark says I can go there. Get here and we'll talk. When we talked, then Denmark pulled the bullshit, and to be honest, there was expectation for that, but at the same time, it has to play itself out, and things have to go through motion. Pledge process has to be done. The will of God has to be manifested, and things have to be aware. From there, that provides guidance into further establishment with specifically and intentionally within Rastafari. So we done had the dreads and we done walked the trot already, but now it's a matter of like I said, intentionality and further. So already had the reasoning with Rastafari brethren in Africa, in Zimbabwe, years before that, which precipitates me going to Ghana and already going there. So when kinfolk are in the deep depths of Babylon, in the hierarchies of convention, it takes a lot to move from that into the proximity and the actuality of garden experience and the spirituality. So little small things like just having a reasoning in Zimbabwe for a number of days with Rastafari brethren, and doing gradual things might seem like, yo, you could have done the huge stuff. Yo, understand, we were immersed in like a convoluted like gel of elitism. Movement doesn't happen like that. So we had to do just enough to get from that to be able to move further. So, all right, pledge. That's a pledge process. It's all a pledge process. So even through today, what am I done? We're talking about the African. So again, for solution. At this point, there's been the opportunities, and the stimulus check was an opportunity, because what we presume by and large is that the kinfolk who are accepting stimulus checks, that when 2-3 years ago when it happened, actually it was like 3 or 4 years when it happens, if I recall correctly. When that happens, I don't know how much it was, but if it's over a G, that's enough for a plane ticket, even a one-way plane ticket. I don't know if it's available to just buy a one-way plane ticket to Ghana or otherwise, but to get a plane ticket, and if people are accepting the stimulus checks, then there's the presumption that people are claiming U.S. citizenship at this point, and that's not hate on that, just as a matter of fact. And if that's the case, if people don't have qualms claiming U.S. citizenship or whatever else, that means that people can get a U.S. passport by and large. Some folks say, yo, convicted felon can't get this and the other. That's when we talk with the embassies and be like, yo, we have a situation here. We need a credential. We need a visa. And that's we negotiate that accordingly, because then that's a specific cause for Ghana to particularly step up. Now I can't guarantee that, particularly as I've just said, but that is specific cause, and we can consult with lawyers to facilitate that process, whatever, because things get done. Talk to sports management agents who deal with their all those fine paperwork stuff for athletes to travel from place to place, particularly when it's the sport of football. I've already said that, haven't I, about that commercial thing? I think that's what I was doing. I was half asleep yesterday. See how I'm being worked? I'm being worked. And food is right here. And let's wrap this up. All right, wow, already an hour and a half. Bunga. All right, so point is, at that time, 3-4 years ago with the stimulus check, that was an opportunity. That was, I won't say the opportunity, but that was another opportunity to get out of the beast. And the beast is always around, but the beast of the United States, and to be out of it, that was another opportunity. And when black kinfolk squander these opportunities, there's less ground of saying anything. And meanwhile, as the ground is crumbling and infrastructure is crumbling, the last ditch efforts is like taking shots and everything and everybody else. I didn't say the crabs in a bucket scenario though. Okay. That's like the last ditch effort of hanging on to the old ways of doing things and everything else. Of just that divide and conquer, master, splitting the slaves against each other, whatever else, and pitting each other and trying to do that type of thing. Whilst Master himself is in the house on fire situation. So it's not happening. It's not working. It's not viable. We've been done said this. It's not just now. Yeah, all right. So mixed people too. We got something for mixed people too. All right. They supposedly mixed people too. All right. So, we got something for everybody. All right. So point is, there was another opportunity squander, because whatever that stimulus check was, I don't know. I think there was a straight amount for everybody to cover whatever. It was like a blank check. And understand what that actually is. It's just appeasement. It's placating. And it's also buying into the authority of the issuer of the check. Because when people accept that, people are accepting subordination to the one who's handing it out. That's one of the reasons. Man, all right. And I'm not claiming to be any better than anybody else. I have a knowledge about that. So in me accepting it, I just hit GarageBand. All right. So people can follow me for however I get rice or whatever else. But for the most part, I mean, just as a general thing, I don't have much money. I don't accept much money, and I don't accept money from the government. Now we can talk about buffers and laundering methodologies and everything else like that, and all the different like feigned rationalizations and excuses. That applies to how the money is conferred, quote unquote. Because where does the United States get its money from? Where does the United States get its riches, its gold, or its land, or anything else from? It doesn't begin and end with the United States. So. I'll just focus here right now and I'll work on concluding this joint. All right. Another opportunity was had with the stimulus checks. I'm uncertain how much it was. I understand it was over a G or maybe 2 G's or something like that, but it was a considerable amount comparatively speaking. It wasn't that much, but it was enough for a person who receives it. I don't know if there was what it was, if like for a family, if it was like 4 times that amount or whatever. I don't know all the details of how it was distributed and applied, allocated. What I do know is that at least for one person, and even if it was 2 G's for 2 people, even 3 people, to get a plane ticket and go to Ghana and just arrive in Ghana and be like, look, and particularly because Kinfolk were on that mindset of like, yo, this COVID thing, people are going at each other for toilet paper in stores. I ain't trying to be here. That was another opportunity to get a plane ticket, get a passport. Passport costs like $100. All right, there's $100 there. Plane ticket, $800, $900, $1,000. Boom, Ghana. What's happening? A lot of people aren't on that mindset of just like being out there like that. It's a huge thing, but that's what we're dealing with. That's what I've been dealing with for over 20 years. And it's a very extreme and a very like volatile kind of thing, but at the same time, it cultivates a mindset of knowing how to deal with these things so that it's not, people don't lose their heads when things get a little bit anxious or tenuous. So that point being, that was just another opportunity. So amidst all the things that happened with the Black community in the United States, particularly in the past century with the wars and going to war and fighting and killing other people in the name of the United States and getting benefits for that, having a Black president, and then having an official check of saying, here's a plane ticket that you can take to get out. Because people have not taken that opportunity, then that becomes on people. Just like the wife who's being beaten by her husband, and who rightfully deserves safety and sanctuary and protection and support. But when she keeps going back to her husband, at some point, at the initial point, and particularly at some later point, it's like, yo, it's on her. Stop going back there. I didn't come back here of my own volition. I was forcefully dragged back here, and that's on the world because the world facilitated that. That's me being here. That's me being here. Me staying here. Cats have another formula. Well, at this point, it's not even intentionally me leaving at this point, because, again, I'm not even going to look for a way out at this point because we already left. And we've been forcefully dragged back. And so now we recognize there are greater forces at power beyond the United States, beyond Europe and otherwise. So we have to recognize that. And recognizing like it's the world in tumult. The world system is crumbling in terms of the republic and democracy. So the United States is experiences that heavy because there's little else for the United States other than that, as in terms of a premise of structure and stability and continuity. For other regions of the world that are indigenous intrinsically, there's other things to like rely upon in order to go through the transition process to another methodology or to an adjusted methodology. So the implications of the crumbling and dissolution of the Republican democracy in the United States is much further impactful, and also for the Western Hemisphere, because much of the Western Hemisphere is similar and connected with the United States, all the way to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, in Canada and further. So uh, there are the opportunities, and at this point, um, if cats or as cats get back onto that mindset of yo, it's getting too hectic, I'm actually seriously thinking about going. There it is, and there's no guarantee about there being a financial package to facilitate it at this point, but save and whatever and go to Africa. Otherwise, connect with mixed people, because black as a viable, how do I put this? Black. African is continual. African is African. I'm an African. I'm an African. That is continual. But the black identity, all right. So for black kinfolk, rather than hating on mixed kinfolk, I can't give an unbiased recommendation in this situation. So it's always going to lend itself to this type of criticism. But as much of a worldview that can be provided in this respect, those are the basic two options. Because when kinfolk don't go back to Africa, they are attaching themselves to another wagon, and being subordinate and servants of that other wagon. Plain facts. And the hatred towards mixed people is just the orders and the doctrine of that wagon that kinfolk are stacked on. So it's not a genuine like African generated thing. So all right. One of the reasons why I somewhat harp on that is because do I get into this segue now? I guess so. Is because what is increasingly evident is just like this comprehensive and collusive admonishment and suppression of mixed identity. And I mean, that's what mixed people talk about all the time, but it's talked about as like a happenstance of like, this is just part of the whatever culture we find ourselves in, whether it's Japan, whether it's United States, whether it's England, whether it's China, whatever. Like, this is just the culture, and it's a matter of like, this is a pioneering thing, a pioneering consciousness or whatever, and so it's a matter of patience. And additionally, but what is observed at this point is that it's not just a matter of an aversion towards something new. What we're observing, particularly, I guess perhaps because this is where I'm personally situated at the moment, but there's an intentionality and an observed increased intensity in suppressing and dissuading and channeling, corralling mixed heritage people away from being mixed. Because of tremendous fear of the mixed identity or mixed kinfolk unseating the power structures of monoculture, particularly in a land that is foreign to that power structure, like Eurocentrism in the Western Hemisphere. There's increasingly evident a tremendous fear and insecurity towards mixed heritage. Now we're hearing people get a little bit louder with their voices, and it's almost there seems to be a recognition of the inevitability, and like this fierce like clenching as much as possible, even in a futile way, like again like kamikazes, of just like but it's not just a matter of like happenstance. It's not just a matter of like a culture just trying to be itself and retain itself and resisting change or resisting like newness or whatever. It's a resignation of particularly a foreign homogenous culture like Eurocentrism in the United States. It's a resignation, like a belligerent resignation of the eventual, and like just being valued by others and being valued by oneself by how much one vehemently retards, represses, and delays that process. Um, but there's still being the recognition of the inevitability, just because it's the nature that's beyond the control of man, beyond the control of science and technology. Um, and like the extremes is like the only way to stop it is like to annihilate everybody. Um, and some might be on that tip, but the vast majority recognize seemingly that yeah, that's not gonna happen. But at the meanwhile, we'll do our best, and we'll make a name for ourselves, just to for the record to show how much we did to try to stop it or try to limit it, and otherwise, because there's still Europe. Europe has this thing of being indigenous and legitimacy, even though mixed is increasingly prominent there, um, and that's part of the fear too about what might happen, what or what will happen, and we're not wishing dominance or conquering. The nature of being mixed is not one of conquest imperialism, because in being mixed, and particularly omni-mixed, and particularly the omni-mix that we share, is very respectful of our heritage, of our ancestors. Our ancestors are very lily pure, quote unquote, white, pure European. Our ancestors are lily pure black and ebony. So we respect that. For us to respect ourselves, for us to know ourselves, we have to know and respect who our ancestors are and who our relatives are, who are the other children are of our ancestors who retain that. We have to respect that and support that as much as we can. It's not a matter of trying to convert. It's not a matter of trying to make everybody mixed. Some mixed people say that. Some people mixed people say that humorously. Some mixed people say that immersed in a hypersexualization of just sex all over the place. And so that's just part of the characteristic of sex all over the place, a big old orgy. And that's a lot of how mixed people are conditioned and groomed and otherwise. So we have a lot of healing to do in that respect. But part of our methodology and part of our culture is one that's very disciplined, very ethical, and very respectful, very humble. Like I said, we don't own any land, and we're guided away from owning any land. That's not all mixed people. That's our collective. That's our guidance, and that's what the wisdom of the worlds and our teachers, our prophets, ancestors, and sages teach us, collectively and togetherly, cohesively. So we're not trying to conquer anything. We're not trying to take over and make all of Europe multicultural. We're not trying to take over Africa and make all Africa multicultural. We want Africa to be Africa. We want Europe to be Europe. We want blonde hair, blue eyes to be blonde hair, blue eyes. We want dark skin, beautiful, ebony, and kinky hair to be dark skin, beautiful, ebony, and kinky hair. We won't call it kinky. Let's be respectful. I was going to say nappy, but no. Locks. Whatever we say. Well, let's learn an African word. Let's learn some Twi and some Amharic and some Zulu and some Hausa, some Igbo of how to describe African hair. Love it. Natural. Beautiful. And that's the indigenousness. Respective indigenousness. Rigid indigeneity. Respecting indigeneity. So if Namaste is presence of God, recognizes the presence of God, then we will find another word, another saying to say indigeneity, respecting indigeneity. That's who we are as mixed people. So now at the same time, just understanding, like, if you like this technology that comes from other places, there's going to be people continually around that technology. That's part of the bond. That's part of the relationship. And so with that, you're going to have, if you're going to bring the cell phones, or you're going to bring the computers, or the food, the spices, the medicine from other places, you're going to have people from those places, the children of that knowledge. And additionally, and when you have the children of those places, it's beneficial to have some methodology of diplomacy. And it might but just be a sequestered region or a sequestered province where, okay, this is our multicultural zone. Out here, it's indigenous all day. Right here, in this city, in this province, or whatever, this is where the international community can come. We can do our trading and bring products back in here, but this is our place of diplomacy. There are different methodologies of doing it. If you look at the world, just intrinsically, Africa does it in different ways than Europe does it. Africa identifies a specific location. And when I'm saying Africa, I'm not talking about the people of Africa. I'm talking about Mother Earth of Africa. Mother Africa says, okay, Europeans are coming. Okay, we're going to keep this particular region that's coolest and most the climate that's most acclimating to African or to European nature. We'll keep this as an area to encourage and maintain Europeans who are going to come here because they have to. They have this need. So okay, here this is where it'll be, and that's what happens. Europeans migrate to South Africa, the coolest region of Africa, the one that whose climate most resembles the European climate, and then ransack South Africa, and continue to deal with it. And then it's a continuing to evolve process, but it's concentrated. The European population, from what we observe, is highly or the greatest concentration is in the southern tip of Africa, where it's the coolest. And otherwise, around other Africa, European folk cannot stand living the other places. It's too hot. The air is too thick. Serious. It's not easy. And there's a stiff upper lip to try to keep these pretenses of strength or whatever else. But European people, just honest, cannot stand living near the equator. Plain and simple. And so you see that in the population. And the amount of diversity and otherwise, and multiculturalism in other places. There are pockets, but otherwise it's concentrated in southern Africa. Meanwhile, in Europe, it's a little bit different, because Europe has a different climate, it's a different nature, and so people coming from the hot areas from the equator with the methodologies beyond just like the socioeconomic slavery and everything else like that, and all those dichotomies, just looking where the life congregates and situates. What the methodology is in Europe is divide, is separate, dilute. And so it's a different way of cleaning, quote unquote. It's dilution. And so already the methodology of habitation within Europe is different than what it is in Africa, generally speaking. And it's also different here on this land too, where it's very migratory. And that's distinct somewhat from Africa and Europe. But in Europe, again, there's settlements, the cities, the big cities. That's the big thing. And then in the big cities, having so that's spread out. It's not just one region of Europe. It's not just Iberia. It's not just Italia, where it's the warmest and where it's the most closest to the migration and everything, where people might be entering first. Then there's circulation and spreading populations voluntarily or involuntarily, by providing motivation. I heard there's opportunities. Oh no, they're hiring up in Denmark. Oh no, it's free to get. You can get a refugee status very easy in Sweden. But just guiding people to go in different directions, so it's not all just one population that could like establish eventually a stronghold or whatever else. But dilution, just like with African folk in the United States, the policy is, we got a lot of African folks. Let's make these opportunities in the north and dilute the population so that they don't have a majority in any one place. Because after Reconstruction, black senators and black government, and additionally, we can't have that. Let's get people out of here. And spread them to Illinois and Ohio and New York and Pennsylvania, and additionally, so that they continually be the political minority and have very little prospect of having at least political influence and leverage and policy. So it's a methodology: dilution, divide and conquer, and it's not imperialism just isn't exclusive to Europe, but that's just one of the methodologies. And it's temperature, it's climate based. That's where the methodology comes from. Generally speaking, we'll go into the mechanics and specifics of that. But in Europe, what we observe is the African populations are spread out, and then to different cities and different places, from Czechoslovakia and in Ukraine, Kiev, Italia, Iberia, and otherwise, Scandinavia, France, obviously, Deutschland. But it's spread out, and then even in being spread out, even in being like situated in enclaves in cities, it's a minority part of the city. And then it's diluted as much as possible. And then when it gets like to the micro, then it's a matter of sequestering, of like, but nobody wants to be around as much as possible. That's hyperbole. That's not nobody. Some people love it, like, what's going on? And then you get the boundaries of multiculturalism around that. But in general, as a general policy of the society, it's a matter of, once it gets reduced to actual habitation, amidst that spreading at the city level, it's a matter of keeping it separate as much as possible from influencing and getting involved with others, because there is a high proclivity towards intermixing and mixed bloodedness amidst the surrounding population. So there's dilute, and then when it gets down to where people actually stay, separate or segregate from the rest of the homogeneity. Very difficult to do for large populations and large migrations, but that's what we observe in the European methodology. Asia is still somewhat like still work in progress. There's like, I mean, India is like absorption, and then there's colorisms and otherwise and certain structures, fixtures accordingly. I have yet to eat. Now we're getting all the way to Juma now. So, anyways, purposeful that. At this point, this would be the time in the class where the student would say, "You were talking about this," but at this moment, I have to like do it on my own because we're dolo right now. Very difficult to hear that at this moment. We're talking about black folk migrating. We're talking about solution, mixed people. So um, I'll get back to that without maybe necessarily retracking all the different steps that I did on that side step, on that side track. I'll just get back to the main thing. Attaching black folk attaching to mixed people. If black people aren't going back to Africa, to respect, to acknowledge. But even now, at this point, this is beyond that now. It's not even a matter of looking at mixed people as equal, and it's always equal. But at this point, instead of attaching your wagons, which you know you do already, your jobs, your money, your bank account, your language, and additionally, you're attaching and you're subordinating and subjugating yourself to the white constructs. And you hate that. And that's part of why you're frustrated with yourself because you do that. Instead of doing that as much, withdraw from that significantly and attach it to mixed people, to trust mixed people, rather than trying to get over or being hired slaves to try to get over on mixed people. Attach yourselves, support, and be like, all right, we rolling with y'all. Y'all are mixed. We respect that. You're not better than us, but we see where things are going right now, and we see y'all got something going on here, and we support that. We're not going to hate on that. We respect it. We got our own thing, but we respect what y'all doing. Now how do we get this done? All right, now let's roll. Discipline, ethics, and otherwise. That's for black folk. That's for white folk. That's across the board, but particularly for black folk because of the extenuating circumstances. Respect Native people. That's actually before even like not necessarily before because mixed people. We're talking about mixed people who have African ancestry, particularly in this respect with black folk, but ones who have shared ancestry, establishing that connection, and in doing that, also respecting properly the native kinfolk in the land that we're, because that's as mixed people, that's what we do, and that's who we are as well. Respect for native kinfolk, and then from there, all right, let's talk. The way we stay together and the way we build together optimally is through ethics and ethical discipline, and that's what it takes to like navigate through all the provocations and the dust being kicked up and everything else like that, and so. And learn about ourselves, like learn about our ancestors, our heritage, and further. So that's what this is, and we share the materials we have for you to learn about yourself as Africans, to learn your languages as Africans, and for us to learn with you as we're in that process too. So we are you, and further, you are further, we are further. We're different, yet we're here, and we're of the same. So that's the recommendation at this point. That's the suggestion. Humble, honest, enduring. So, all right. So now mixed people. What we observing is that again, like there. Oh, that's what I was talking about in terms of the intensity. The intentionality and the intensity of the suppression of mixed people, particularly with the United States, but we're observing this worldwide. But it seems to be further intense and intentional, and manifesting itself in different ways. One is just plain suppression, which has been historic. Just don't talk about it. Let's just be happy you're here. Be happy you have food to eat. Just don't talk about it. That's like the historic scenario. And that's still very pervasive. From the top, amidst the middles and colleagues, family members, and everything. Let's just not talk about it. Let's not rock the boat. We don't want to say anything controversial. Even in addressing it, we're going to get scrutiny from others. So just we're acknowledging you. Just be happy and thankful for that. We can thank God for that. Don't you do that? So just do that. That's the rationale, and could say pimp talk, but just that's just like the trope of oppression and suppression concerning mixed heritage and mixed existence. Um, then we get in recognizing like that's not going to stop it from growing and becoming prominent within world culture and world society and world life. So then there become additional methodologies of trying to like manipulate it, control it. Um, for those elements that are not as manipulatable or controllable, then leading them onto wild goose chases or leading them into annihilation or otherwise. So they're those different tactics, and so the way some of that looks is that one is the having big parades and big things like conferences or whatever, and inviting having a certain amount of money and resources that gets attention from would-be recruits and particularly youth, and then but the leadership and the methodology of within the organization leads people just to do unessential, non-priority, non-effective type stuff. Um, that's one methodology of just leading astray. But it's also in that process also screening to see who might be recruits for ongoing COINTELPRO type stuff, proactive, preemptive COINTELPRO type stuff before there is even a civil rights movement. If you think about that, COINTELPRO, for those who have less awareness, is the FBI in the United States establishes a program of espionage within domestic organizations like the NAACP, and additionally to infiltrate, to prepare to train agents to be involved in those organizations, to get into the leadership of those organizations, and then cause disruption, cause sabotage, provide information about what prosecutions can go, and additionally, so that was an intentional, official facts strategy of the U.S. government to undermine, to like take away the civil rights movement and what was going on in terms of raising people's consciousness, and additionally, and so that's one of the methodologies for taking out and suppressing that evolution of social consciousness. Now again, it's futile because the will of God manifests itself inevitably, but at this point, when we look at the mixed heritage movement and additionally movement, it's beyond a movement. It's a civilizational phenomenon. It's an existential phenomenon. So it's a heritage phenomenon. But as a methodology, perceiving it in a similar way to the civil rights movement, and recognizing that it has yet to have an infrastructure like organized lobby organizations and institutions, and additionally, what we observe is a preemptive COINTELPRO, and it's not just from the government, but it's through other entities in the hierarchy of U.S. society. But it's a preemptive COINTELPRO of establishing organizations, establishing initiatives and programs and leadership that is already trained and already indoctrinated and already guided to lead things into ineffectiveness. So rather than rallying mixed people about establishing an independent sovereignty, or doing economic collaboratives or economic co-ops or intentional communities, or establishing a lobby group or professional organizations that are independent and independent mixed heritage think tanks and the standard things that all other ethnic communities do. Rather than doing that, leading people and encouraging people, just have discourse and talk about themselves. Talk about their own pains. Let them go through therapy in open, and share their life story. Make it a party. Do some drawing. I don't want to be dismissive, but bring in the art. Bring in the women as seductresses, as well as authoritarian feminist type of personalities. Allow some of the effeminate men to kind of get up there, because that only has so much efficacy. And there it is, preemptive, proactive COINTELPRO concerning the mixed heritage movement. In the meanwhile, for the past 20 years that I'm involved, and from the 20 years before that, when the OGs were doing things, as I mentioned before, Dr. Maria Root, Reginald Daniel, um, HAPA Issues Forum, American Mixed Multi-Ethnic Association, MASC, and initially that's over 40 years ago those rules were established. In that 40 years, the one issue that was done was the census, and that's attached to a U.S. construct, and actually implicitly brings people into accepting U.S. citizenship and U.S. identity and U.S. politics and U.S. boxes. You don't want to be placed in a box, but want to have your own box. You're still playing the box game. And the authority, the imperialistic methodologies that are doing that. That's what the whole census thing is. So even in 2000, it's a victory. We can now identify however we want to identify. We can click off more than one box, but you've been recruited into the box game. And so the game goes on. It's just adjusted, but it's still the box game. Instead of establishing an actual lobby agency, instead of actually establishing an official think tank that brings in mixed heads and talks with mixed heads from other places and connects that. So that has yet to be established for over 40 years. Meanwhile, naturally, already mixed population is officially over 10%, 15%, or whatever it is, nationwide in the United States. And that's not even that's just the tip of the iceberg. The actuality is that the mixed heritage population is over 50%. And how do I know that? How does anybody know what any percent? But if you just recognize the facts that the majority of the people of the United States are mixed, 99% of the people come from someplace else. And depending on how you acknowledge the experience of mixedness, French and Anglo is mixedness. Italian and French is mixedness. So when many people, European and otherwise, European heritage, otherwise have native heritage, mixedness. Latino, mixedness. Arab, a lot of it, mixedness. So black folk, by and large, we recognize mixedness. So all the other ethnic groups that claim to be a pure one way, only checking one box, are actually mixedness. And that's not some kind of like, mixed empire forever. It's just facts. So even amidst all the suppression, the population is becoming mixed with all this oppression and not having the literacy about how to be mixed, because the leadership, the provided leadership in the prominent organizations that have money and banking and backing, are these preemptive COINTELPRO agencies that are providing and pushing a very suppressed and unessential agenda, and drawing in the new recruits and dissuading attention away from the priority issues. Again, no think tanks. I shouldn't say no, but there's very little semblance of independent mixed heritage think tanks or political action groups or mixed heritage journalist association or mixed heritage lawyer association or mixed heritage doctor association or mixed heritage engineering association or all those other things that are typical and standard within other ethnic communities. Over 40 years of intentional organizing as a phenomenon in the United States. Now, that being said, meanwhile, there are established mixed heritage communities worldwide. We're getting into this whole thing. But so my point is, there's an intentionality, and it's increasingly intense. Like what we're observing now is, like I said, that was one example of the COINTELPRO of like being proactive additionally. But now again, we're continuing to see it manifest. We're continuing to see young people come out. So now what we're observing is that with many of the old heads who do, won't be 100% agreement with everybody with their organizations or whatever, but those old head organizations and groups and kinfolk and leaders that do seem to have further genuineness and authenticity and like trying to make the best amidst already kind of assimilating within the system, but like doing like strong, like independent or independent projects. I'm not going to name names at the moment because that might seem as like a cliche when it's actually it's all actually providing kudos. But even then, many of those have gone on to hiatus or otherwise, and so have just like have the actual project has gone on hiatus. And so in the meanwhile, again, we see all these restarts continuing going, wave after wave of restarts, in very different types, from just like pop culture type stuff to like discussion type stuff and otherwise. And again, a lot of it is recycling the same superficial, surface level conversation. We see some further depths, and we appreciate that when we look into it. But what we also recognize is that there's a lot of artificiality. There's a lot of imposters, even mixed heritage imposters. And for those who are seasoned and have a knowledge and how what things look like and what things feel like, what we're observing now with the podcast, I mean, like all of a sudden, like just do a search and here comes a new podcast, and and they've been around for half a year. Wait, how is this going to happen? Again, we're being there is, I won't say get into this, we are, because again, sovereigns we are. There is a cloud. There is subterfuge. There is a realm of distance. There's a barrier in our communication with each other when we're relying upon the internet. And so, in order, when we rely upon search engines and everything to find each other, by terms or whatever, and that's my old school methodology. When it's not a word of mouth of like, yeah, I heard this, and yeah, then we're not referring to each other. Like back in the day in the internet, people would get links, and we could know about an organization because, oh no, that other organization gave this link, so that's a sanction. That's a vouching for this organization. So that's one way we could tell the authenticity and the credibility of another organization that we're just learning from. We never heard of this before, but no, so-and-so had a link to it. So, and there was less concern about artificial websites or whatever else. Now, like people don't even link to each other too tough these days. So there's that, and then so when people just do a search and rely upon the algorithm, or if it's artificial intelligence, uncertain how much that is, if it's automatically done this way with artificial intelligence and the searches. But when that's the methodology of finding out where people are, and then finding these new results about these new podcasts that have been going on for a year, 6 months, or whatever, I searched like 3 months ago and never heard about this, and now it's been around for 6 months, a year. That right there, that's suspicious. And then when we listen to it, I mean, again, on the surface level, a lot of it sounds like the speak, but a lot of it is I don't want to say regurgitating, but restating what's already been said. So it's difficult to discern how genuine it is or otherwise. But then what we do observe now is that in some of these joints, we hear just like conversations, I observe. Oh, we're into Juma now, so I have to go. We observe a musical performance of a cover of Mo Better Blues, and the band was like a beige. It was all beige. It might be light shades of beige. Maybe some people have European ancestry, but basically it was all beige. Everybody was wearing masks. It might have been during the COVID, but it was just very sterile. And it was like, it was not it. It was not it. It just felt so much contrived, and it felt so sterile, and like inoculating, but it looked the part, and people were kind of like, some of the people were just hardly moving, and just kind of like, and it's like, that's not jazz. And you can say, oh, you can't say what jazz is, just like you can't say what Rastafari is and everything else, but no, it's beneficial to recognize this, because what we do know in the jazz culture is when the cover bands, and additionally, take a song that black folk, Africans sing, and then because white folk have distribution and companies and everything else like that, sing the same song and then put the face on it and pretend like it's theirs. That's part of the gripe that black folk have towards mixed people, of doing that at this moment in representing black culture, quote unquote. So I know that, many kinfolk know that, and mixed heritage kinfolk are very guilty of appropriating black culture. It's part of like the intrinsic culture of mixed heritage in the United States, is this to have some semblance of authenticity, to imitate black culture and black trope and cadence. So that is a problem, and we recognize that. And there are many mixed people who are not even mixed with black, but still kind of talk that talk. Even people who are monocultural, European, Asian, and otherwise, who do that. So that's a thing. That's like the American thing, is stealing from black culture. So that's a thing. So when I talk about this jazz joint, it was beige kinfolk who were playing Mo Better Blues. Anybody can play Mo Better Blues. I show examples in Czechoslovakia of kinfolk playing Mo Better Blues, Japan playing Mo Better Blues, and they doing it because they're playing it with that feeling and that heart and that spirit, that soul. And anybody from any culture um, has that um, prerogative or has that, I'm not going to say right, but has that propensity. Um, but it's a matter of respecting the culture. It's a matter of and being oneself, being genuine. The performance that I'm talking about right now that I observe, it was all beige people that could be of African heritage, but predominantly beige. Could be Latino, could be something else. Um, but the whole vibe was just very sterile, and it was very suppressive. People were wearing masks. Not everybody, because to play the horn, you gotta have it. But everybody else was wearing masks. So okay, it's COVID, but still, that's still it's like suppressive, and it's not just suppressive, but it's promoting suppressiveness of like, be safe, we're being safe, you be safe. So it becomes that whole message of science, policy, and suppression, and everything else like that in playing the music. The notes were there; it was all accurate in terms of that, and it felt very formulaic. Um, and then even like the expressiveness that was in it, that felt like just like contrived. And the whole thing, the point is, it's an imitation. It's not an homage. It's not a building from. It's not a representing. It's an imitation. It's a replacement kind of. It steps towards a replacement. It's the hyenas taking sniffs, sniffing around, saying, what can we get away with in terms of imitating this culture, imitating this message, imitating this trope, and getting people to follow it and believe in it, and then lead people in a further off track. So that was that musical performance that I saw this past year. And so what we're observing now is also mixed heritage conversations along those lines, where it talks about, like, it repeats some of the standard trope about not identifying and different culture, this and the other. But then it guides people, and it drops some certain like buy-ins into conventional society about being a U.S. citizen or doing something else along those lines. And we're having testing now, because now the brethren, Jonathan Schwartz and additional neighbors, are standing in front of the window intentionally having a conversation, and Jonathan Schwartz is looking directly at the window. So now we're seeing what we want to do. No words for Jonathan Schwartz. That's already been spoken, so we had no words. And there's no peacemakers, because people are part of the problem as well. So um, we're not playing the pretend game at this point. So kinfolk can hold on to their solidarities and their fleeting empires. It may not make sense what I'm talking about. I'm just observing, and meanwhile the backup is keeping a few distance away, just to observe the conditions. So this is the game being played out. Again, right as Juma is supposed to happen, and that's on me for playing. Oh, is this that brethren? No, it's not that brethren. There's another brethren, and it's a community thing, because a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago, I'm sitting out in the village doing what I do, talking to people, and there's a brother who walks by me, and has a big old Wahoo hat on. And it wants to, and I know him for years and years around the village. He doesn't talk to me that tough, and it's not antagonistic, but he just doesn't talk to me that tough. Tends to be regularly inebriated, and goes to Little Italy very frequently to be inebriated. And not trying to put on his business or hate on him, but just that's facts. And so don't have much of a reason to talk with him. Don't hate him. Say hi to everybody. On this particular day, a few weeks ago, I'm sitting on the village saying hi to everybody. As his brother walks out, first of all, he's walking from behind me. And so as he's walking from behind me, and he turns and says hi, and I say hi to him, and as I do, I see he's got the Wahoo on. And for some reason on that particular day, he wants to sit and talk and have a smiley face. And I say, no, that's racist. And so he goes, oh. And I say, that's it. So that's the type of situation we're dealing with. And now we have the friend who wants to walk around and be provocative. Don't know who this brethren is, but he wants to like mosey around in front of the window as well. So again, these little provocations, just to get noticed, just to get talked about. so that kinfolk are in the ether and setting up um, positions for further whatever later on. But little reason to walk in front of my window, the window here. So, anyways, just speaking about the conditions. So again, distraction away from the priority, which is actually Juma. So, um, and again, it's a pledge process, and I guess that's what brings it all forward. So at the moment, imitation, that's one thing. We're observing like podcasts and people who are claiming to have mixed heritage, particularly when they're not visible from just an audio recording. But even when people do have mixed heritage, or we're also observing people who seem to be of European ancestry predominantly, not claiming to be mixed or otherwise, but then having a relation, whether it's a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or otherwise, and thus having some type of status. Anybody can talk about being mixed, but at the same time, when people represent themselves and start talking authoritatively and otherwise, that's misrepresentation. So we're observing these different tactics. We're observing an intensity within these tactics and an intentionality with these tactics for different reasons. And it also speaks of the further desperation of conventionality and grasping on and clutching on to loose straws as a way of just reverting to old methodologies of conquest as a way of trying to like just be stable as things are falling apart. So we're not hating on that and recognizing that all these provocations, and additionally just what happens a few seconds ago, is part of the pledge process, is part of testing us and how we respond, and of whether we get angry like hurt children, or whether we respond like adults and saying, okay, that's not how we do things right now, children, and how much discipline and stability and strength we have in ourselves, not to get mad, not to overreact, not to behave and not to cause undue harm or undue abuse in response, but at the same time to stand ground and say, no, that's not how we do it. No, we're not going to do it that way. We need to do better. And so that's part of it. And even the kinfolk who are in the midst of doing the provocations, some know that and intentionally know that, and be like, how are they gonna respond? And if they respond favorably, just like in the pledge process, the big brothers, are they gonna hit me back? Are they gonna get and give me a side, or are they gonna like say okay, and then respond back? Now it's a little bit different because the kinfolk here are not like it's not deference, but at the same time, when kinfolk presume and are perceived as having some type of leverage within convention, there is that and even know that that's going away, still have to test people to see if they can trust them, so that they're bigger beasts that are going on here. They're bigger demons that are affecting everybody. But at the same time, for even previous adversaries to know if they can trust the people that they've been just abusing, they still have to like put the person to the ring to see if that person recognizes that this how things work. And sometimes that's in a wrong way, and the abusers have to learn better. And sometimes, very often, the abusees have to know what it's like to be an authority, and accordingly. And so to recognize, okay, this is it. This is how we deal with it. Yes, it was wrong, but we don't retaliate by doing wrong back. Do you know how to be disciplined accordingly? I can't teach you directly myself, but I know, and I have to see if you know. And when you show me that you know, okay, now I can recognize that, and we can work. Not like each other still or whatever, but we can work and build, because we got further problems to deal with collectively. But we have to know if we can trust each other and respect each other honestly, accordingly. So it's a pledge process. And when cats fly off the handle and don't have discipline or whatever else, it's like, oh, no, we can't trust them. They're not ready, whatever. But if a person just bends and melts and folds and just acquiesces to the abuse, no, we can't trust them. They're not ready. But if a person, when people stand up and be like, no, that's not right, and we do a discipline and we say, oh, what's up? And that's it. Oh, hold up. Okay, we see you. All right. We continue on. Now, a lot of it is intentional. A lot of it is unintentional. Sometimes cats is tripping and not intending to be this whole pledge complicated type of thing, because they're under the control of demons, and they're drunk and intoxicated, unaware. But they're not that much gone. And when kinfolk stand up and be like, yo, no, it's not right, and then kinfolk wake up and be like, oh, wait, hold up, no, you're right, I was tripping, yo, thanks. That could have gone a whole nother different type of way. But I'm glad that you respond that way. And you're right. You're right. Okay, let's build now. I remember one time, I'll say this and I'll go because I got to go to Juma. Um, when I was working at Amnesty International and still enveloped in knuckleheadedness, sexual exploitation, and additionally, I had the occasion of having a swimsuit calendar that featured young, beautiful, attractive sisters in bathing suits. Brethren that I know for a number of years was doing this business. He was an entrepreneur doing his own thing rather than working for anybody else, and so I'm with that idea. But the way he was doing it was like exploiting our sistren, literally. And I have less discipline and less knowledge otherwise, so I'm like, yo, he's doing his own thing. He's not working for the man or the system. He's an entrepreneur. All right, let's roll. And so I do that, and I'm enveloped in sexual exploitation as well. So hey, what's new? It's not pornography. They're not naked. They got bathing suits. You go to the beach and see bathing suits. So come on, we men. It's okay. No, it's not. That's my mindset at that time. So I'm at Howard University, slanging calendars because I'm trying to get some money to support myself. I'm working, but I wasn't making that much. So plus, go to Howard, see if we meet some people, whatever else. So as I'm at Howard, I'm the terrible salesman. I'm the worst salesman. And basically, I had one sample copy so people can look, and then a stack of unopened, packaged, plastic wrap stuff to sell. Didn't sell one, thankfully. But I had the one sample, so I would show kinfolk, oh, look, what we got, you can buy one for yourself. So kinfolk were keen to look at it, brethren are keen to look at it, but nobody wanted to buy it. That's fine. That's a simple thank you. Don't spread it further than what it was. Now, as I was doing all that, one brother who looked like the youth the young deacon from Different World, that brethren, the actor or whatever, tall, light brown skin, like curly hair, whatever. He's watching me do this in front of the student union at Howard. And so he's like, yo, let me talk to you, brother. Now, I'm a graduate. I graduated just a year before that or whatever. So I'm like the senior or whatever, but he's an undergrad, so he's younger than me. But he's calling deference without even knowing who I am or whatever. I might be, in his eyes, I might be a student at Howard, but whoever, it is inconsequential. The age, particularly a year or two, doesn't make no difference. What it is the behavior. And that's what he's stopping me with. He's like, yo, bro, let me talk to you for a second. Now, he might have his authority and his confidence from religious teachings or otherwise, and it's comparatively inconsequential because it's the principle that is valid, and it's the principle that's giving him authority to talk with me. But he's doing it in a very respectful and congenial and brotherly love way. So he's like, yo, brother, let me holler at you for a second. So he put his arm around me and he's like, yo, man, come on. That's disrespectful to our sister. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I couldn't disagree with that. And I'm honest, and I respect people when they share something. If I'm tripping, let me know. And so again, this is 20 some odd years ago, 25, 27 years ago. So I was just like, okay, I'm respectful. He's not coming at me. He's not coming at me with disrespect. He's not calling me out in front of everybody. He's bringing me to the side, and talking with me with brotherly love. Like, brother, that's not how we do our women. That's not how we treat our. We gotta be respectful. Yeah, I just trying to. No, but bro, I wasn't even arguing. I wasn't trying to make excuses. I was just like, yeah, you're right. Now it takes further while for that to absorb properly and fully, but right there, I remember it to this day. So that's an example of demons being on me at that moment, of clouding my judgment. And because someone responds with love and respect and truth, I don't have to get back at them and overcome the ego or whatever else. So again, truth is 1% what we say and 99% how we say it. So it's a pledge process. And when Cass is tripping and calling us out to respond, to do it with forthrightness and balance and patience and love and truth, rather than just force, even when we are right, even when we have truth behind us. To do it with compassion. What Stevie Wonder say, change your words into truth and change that truth into love. The next one is share that love with modesty. So even this past year when Brethren Stevie Wonder, blessed, peace and respect to him. On his birthday, if I recall correctly, on his birthday becomes a dual citizen of Ghana. Akwaba. Harambe. Congratulations. We still need that modesty. Change your words into truth and change that truth into love. The track is as. I quote it very frequently. But then even further, particularly for Brethren Stevie Wonder, because Brethren Stevie Wonder is enveloped in the demons of sexual deviance as well. Part-time lover, bouillon reggae woman, not trying to shade, but just that it was modesty. We need to share that love with modesty, discipline. So anyways, that's it. We give all thanks and praise to the Most High. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.